Hello, YouTube. Well, I've finally gotten around to taking a look at a performance that many of you have asked me to review. This is The Merry-Go-Round of Life from the Studio Ghibli film Howl's Moving Castle, as performed and arranged by Animenz. Now, I have to say, when people told me I need to check out Animenz, I thought, an anime pianist, how good is he going to be? Probably doesn't have the first idea of a good technique and musicality and so forth, and boy was I wrong. It is so apparent from his performing and from his arranging that this is a person with an excellent grasp of classical music, classical piano technique, and there is so much that we can learn about piano playing and about music by listening to his performances. Now, if I have a few criticisms along the way, please be assured that is in no way meant in the least to disparage the great work that Animenz has done here, both as a pianist and an arranger. This is a fascinating piece, by the way, because it's very Western in nature. It's like a Viennese waltz in many places, and it provides really a fascinating contrast to the Japanese character of the film. So without further ado, let's dive right in and see what Animenz does with the opening here of The Merry-Go-Round of Life. Right away, what you hear off the bat is that he has that quality that every great pianist has, which is the ability to make the melody really sing. Now, he is not only thinking in the right hand here about making the right hand softer than the left. That's, of course, an important step. But in every chord that he plays in the right hand, you hear the top voice being emphasized more than all of the rest. So when he plays a chord like this, or the ones after it, he's not playing like this, sort of flat with all the notes the same. He's really showing us that top voice of the chord, which makes the melodies just sort of come out of this. And by the way, this piece has such a typical classical music structure of the short, short, long. We have the short phrase, this one. I'm going to play it a little faster so you hear it. That's the first phrase. And then the second one, which goes up higher, right? This one. And then the third one, even higher with this incredible half diminished chord. Very intense sound, a very yearning sound, and it continues on. This is the long phrase, which goes all the way to here and ends with this flat 9 on the top, another sort of heart-wrenching harmony. So that's what gives this music its sort of quality of nostalgia and longing and so forth. And by the way, at the beginning, one tiny little thing I would probably do is try to start even softer and create a really nice legato sound with those notes. It could be even a bit better with the legato. And then at the end, personally, I would love to hear ya-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-dum, like a little bit of a Spanish flavor at the end, a little bit more precise with the rhythm, and then very soft in the left hand. When I start this melody, I would really be coming out of nowhere. There's no competition yet from the left hand until we get to here, right? And then listening to the connection between the D and the way it connects to the C afterwards. And he does a great job of kind of showing us this hierarchy of the phrases. He plays the second one more than the first, and he plays the third one even more, all the while really singing out that melody on the top and bringing the phrase down to a nice close here and emphasizing the flat 9, also very nice. Here he could connect a little bit more. He actually lifts the finger in between those. In a good classical technique, we would always want to, make sure that those kinds of resolutions are connected with the fingers. Now we get into the next section where he really shows us, when I heard this for the first time, I was really blown away. Some incredible virtuosity here. Listen to this. Now we're getting into our waltz theme, and my goodness, listen to those tremolos. What an incredible technique. And look also at how relaxed his hand in the right hand especially seems to be. So such a relaxation, which is important to being able to play these tremolos well. And there's an incredible amount of precision. I mean, he's not just sort of randomly rotating and doing some sort of random number of notes per quarter note in the left hand. He's doing always exactly 4. So you hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so forth. One tiny thing that I would maybe do in order to keep this from kind of sounding too in your face, and they're all very strong. All the when he's playing these, they're all very strong, and that's impressive. I, for the character, might do something like this: hitting the notes and then dropping them back down on the long ones. So you have something like. So that these ones don't get kind of too bangy all the time. You hit the note and then disappear a little bit, and it sounds a little bit more like a mandolin that way. And by the way, whenever you have these tremolos, it's a great opportunity to do some cool shaping that you can't do with held notes. So for example, at the end, you could do something like, making a crescendo and then backing down again. The tremolos really allow for that. Now let's listen to this next section. I love this too. Also, what he's done with the arrangement, very cool and creative. Listen to this. So he's really playing around with this kind of 2-voice texture, which is wonderful. We get this melody and then something on the top, which is sort of in the background, right? And then the melody continues, and then something that ornaments that, and then the melody again, tom, and more background music and melody. So this cool alteration using these 2 textures at the same time, 2 voices at the same time. The only thing that I would probably do a little bit differently, my personal taste here, is that I would try to separate them even more with the dynamics. So I'm doing loud, soft, loud, and then the second voice always making it softer here, and then loud and soft, really trying to create a big difference between those different levels in the right hand. And I think it gives it a sort of an extra kind of dimensionality in the music. Let's continue on. And he does a great job here of really singing out the melody. Nice emphasis of the notes on the top. And here, such a cool, playful sound. And this isn't the only place in this performance that makes me realize that he has a good knowledge of classical music. I think he's getting a lot of his ideas with this arrangement from classical pieces. So this kind of alteration between the left and the right hand here with this stuff. And he actually plays this with the right hand and then the left hand, and then does a great job, of continuing that melody between the 2 hands. That's the kind of thing that you hear a lot in Liszt. You hear it in Chopin, in Rachmaninoff, that kind of division between the hands of a single melody, and very creative arranging. Continuing on. So obviously he's practiced his chromatic scales as well when you get this stuff up, this stuff here. And he does a good job of separating that from the main melody. These are always less and very precise. I love it. And I also love what he does with the pedaling. So you hear when we kind of have these waltz kind of themes like da-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum. He's doing a really nice thing with the pedal there, which is putting it down on beat 1 and then releasing it on beat 2. It gives you that cool waltz effect of the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so that pedaling can really help support, and he obviously does a great job, has a good understanding of how to use the pedal. Continuing on. Wow, and he just has such an incredible speed when he does these things, right? It's really great. And does this remind anybody of anything, by the way, when I hear this, the D and then a half step above that, a diminished chord, what it reminds me of, maybe you have it in mind already. Right, sounds like the beginning of "I Will Survive." It's just a diminished seventh chord and a half step lower in the bass. The one thing I would say that I notice sometimes with this technique, which you generally kind of want to avoid, is the flat fingers. So you see sometimes like this, you see the way that this joint is caving in. When he plays this chord, for example, you see the fingers doing a bit of this. You see that in a few other places in this piece as well. We really want to avoid that when we're playing piano because number one, it's not good for the joints, but number two, it means that the energy isn't going directly into the key. If you have this sort of floppy first joint, it can make the sound less precise. Continuing on. Another amazing arpeggio. Great speed, great evenness, accuracy. Yeah, so this is, by the way, what we call a tarantella. It's a piece in 6/8 time, and back hundreds of years ago, they thought that if you did a wild dance, you could sort of get the poison from a tarantula out of your system, basically, to make a long story short. And they developed this style of music called the tarantella, always in 6/8 time, always with this kind of dance character, and pretty quick, 100% a tarantella. And he does a great job of really having a very energetic staccato. Sometimes we say in piano, you should have the feeling that you're jumping off of, like if you touched a hot stove and you just jump back out of reflex. That's the kind of energy that you want in these notes. But you still hear, by the way, all the time, a really nice emphasis on these chords. So when he plays something like this, the top note of the chord being louder than all the rest, and that gives it a really nice sound. So all the time, it's just second nature to him because he's a very good pianist. He does that automatically. Let's continue on here a little bit more of this cool tarantella section. Here again, the division of the melody between the left and the right hands, and he does a great job of bringing that out. And this, by the way, is also straight out of Chopin. And I have to say, he has a really good feeling of time as well. So where to stretch the notes, how to change the tempo, how to lead one section into the next. When he came into this new section with the new tempo, he sets it so well. And what I really love in this section is this amazing sort of interplay between these two voices in the left and the right hand, kind of a poly melody there going on, and very, very cool. And you hear how just another nice sort of touch of pianism here, the way he starts slower and lets it sort of gather speed, the scale. And all his scales are so precise, really, this is somebody who's spent many hours in the conservatory practice room practicing his scales and arpeggios, right? Okay, continuing on. Yeah, and you hear in the right hand here also this really cool texture. So we have the notes that are the melody notes, like here at the beginning, the D on the top, and then everything in the background. And then melody, and then C, and everything in the background. So within this one sort of line here in the right hand, it's really important to differentiate those. And he does a very good job of that with this different sort of layering of the sound, the melody more, and then these other notes in the same hand being even less. So, and then, by the way, turning it into a melody again and leading into that so well with a nice crescendo and the sort of the feeling of of the accelerando leading into that. Very musically effective. Great job. Continuing on. Yeah, and that's nice too. I love the way that he kind of shapes the left hand here. And coming up and down. But what you don't want to forget, and maybe this could be a little bit better, that these chords in the right hand also need to resolve. So we have this, and despite this crescendo, it needs to resolve. This one needs to be less loud. And the same thing here. This one, resolving down. We don't want them to be the same level because it's a clear example of a resolution in those two harmonies. Continuing on. Moving up from the D to the E. And again, he has such a good sense of rubato and his understanding of how to use time effectively. We get this and a accelerando moving forward. The tempo is pressing forward. He's getting faster, and then here he gives us a ritardando, a molto ritardando. Lots of slowing down here. Dum, bum, bum, leading into this big chord, really setting off that arrival point. And I love what he does here. And this next section is also very virtuosic and well played. Always emphasizing those top notes, despite these big, thick chords. And here I would probably even differentiate even more. So in this section, you have the notes that belong to the melody. I mean, it's all written just like sort of one long chain of eighth notes. But all of these, they're not really equally important. So we have the melody notes like bum, 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 and then bringing the other ones down because they're not melody. And those, of course, you can really lead into. Continuing on. So here I would also kind of like to hear a little better resolution, something like da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum. So you hear the connection between this chord and that one, right? But amazing technique, phenomenal playing. Let's continue on. Scale technique again there. Wow. Right? So I am so impressed, first of all, by the fact that he records this on an acoustic piano in one take. There are so many performances out there that are cut everywhere, even if it's not apparent to most YouTube listeners and watchers. But in this case, it seems to have been done really all in one take. And to end a piece with, man, I mean, that's dangerous. You can record the whole piece and then something goes wrong in the last few notes and you've messed it all up. Instead of leaping, he actually does all of these as octaves. But if you want to make it substantially easier to play, you can, on the first ones, da-da-dum, just do this, da-da-da, and then play the octaves after that. And it just feels a lot nicer to not have to sort of jump on all of those notes. But such an impressive performance, a nice control of sound, and really phenomenal technique. So you see why you have to practice scales, you see why you have to practice arpeggios, and how much of an enormous help it is actually to have a good classical technique, even when you're playing this anime or film music. So I hope you've enjoyed some of my comments on Animenz's fabulous performance here today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again in the next video.